Maplewood, Oregon, a peaceful Saturday morning, was suddenly disrupted by a bizarre incident at the local supermarket. The main character of this story is not a criminal, but Ethan Bell, a newly appointed high-ranking police officer who carries the great expectations of the entire community. So, what happened that led a representative of the law to be handcuffed over a bottle of olive oil? Join us to uncover this surprising story, where the line between justice and injustice becomes more fragile than ever. Initially, everything unfolded surprisingly normally. He pushed the shopping cart through the aisles, examining the shelves for fresh vegetables, snacks, and a few household items. A group of teenagers breezed past him in the snack aisle without a second glance, while an elderly couple argued about sauce nearby. It was the kind of ordinariness he hadn't experienced in years, and he savored it like sunshine after a storm. But then, something unexpected happened. As he placed a box of herbal tea into the cart, a piercing alarm blared throughout the store. Everyone turned their heads. Conversations halted mid-sentence. The atmosphere shifted instantly, like the crackle before a thunderstorm. Ethan paused for a moment, instinctively checking his cart, wondering if he had inadvertently triggered the alarm. A uniformed store employee approached him quickly, their face tight with suspicion. "Sir, I need you to step to the side," they said, their voice sharp as a knife. Ethan raised an eyebrow, puzzled but remaining calm. "Is there a problem?" he asked quietly. The employee pointed to a bottle of olive oil peeking out from the edge of his shopping cart. "You didn't scan this item," they accused, their voice loud enough for nearby shoppers to hear. Whispers rippled through the growing crowd as people stopped to stare. Ethan frowned. "I haven't even reached the checkout yet," he replied, his tone firm but decisive. He gestured towards the self-checkout lanes in the distance. "I was planning to scan everything there." But his words seemed to have no effect. The employee had already called for backup. 2 more employees arrived, their demeanor radiating authority. One of them muttered something into a walkie-talkie. And a moment later, the announcement crackled over the loudspeaker, "Call the police." Ethan blinked, stunned by how quickly the situation had escalated. The scrutinizing gazes from the increasing crowd grew heavier, a mixture of judgment and curiosity. He could hear snippets of hushed conversations, words like suspicious and arrogant cutting through the tension like knives. As Ethan climbed into the back of the patrol car, his hands cuffed in front of him, he leaned back against the seat, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. Through the window, he could see the young man still filming, his phone pointed directly at the vehicle. The drive to the station passed in silence, broken only by the crackle of the police radio. Ethan gazed out the window, his mind racing. He thought about the years he had dedicated to building his career, the promises he had made upon taking his new position, and now he was sitting in the back of a patrol car, treated like a criminal for an item he hadn't even had the chance to pay for. How would this affect his credibility and his reform efforts? In the front seat, the older officer muttered uncomfortably, "Always the same. Thinks he's something special." The younger officer seemed uneasy, silently staring straight ahead. Ethan tried to remain calm, but the words, though quiet, stung. He was used to scrutiny, but this was the first time he had faced such blatant contempt from his own colleagues. A moment later, the older officer spoke again, his tone mocking. "Probably gonna play the good guy act now, huh? Guys like you always cause trouble." The younger officer winced slightly but didn't dare to speak. Ethan took a deep breath, trying not to react. He knew that anything he said now could be twisted. He looked out the window, noticing a few pedestrians stopping to watch the patrol car, their expressions a mix of curiosity and judgment. As the car pulled up to the station, the older officer turned to look at Ethan with a smirk. "Welcome to the real world, Chief." He deliberately emphasized the word chief with heavy sarcasm. At this point, Ethan's patience was nearing its end. He looked directly into the officer's eyes, his voice cold. "I hope you maintain this attitude when the internal investigation begins." The officer paused slightly, his smirk fading. The younger officer glanced at him with a worried expression. As Ethan was escorted inside the station, he could still hear the older officer grumbling, "Investigation my foot. It's obvious." The sentence trailed off as they disappeared behind the door. Ethan felt a surge of indignation. not just for the way he had been treated, but also for the toxic prejudice that existed within the very force he was trying to change. He knew the road ahead would be even more challenging than he had imagined. As they arrived at the station, the officers escorted him inside. The air was cold and sterile, the faint hum of fluorescent lights echoing overhead. Ethan was led to a small room with a metal table and 2 chairs. The younger officer gestured for him to sit. "We'll be right back," he said, his voice softer than before. Ethan nodded silently, watching the door close behind them. He sat alone in the room, his mind oscillating between frustration and determination. He knew this wasn't just about him, it was about everyone who had ever been unfairly judged. Those who were presumed guilty until proven innocent, people he, in his new role, had a responsibility to protect. Moments stretched into what felt like hours. Finally, the door opened and the officers returned. The older officer held a stack of papers, while the younger one looked increasingly uncomfortable. "Sir, we've reviewed the store footage," the older officer began. "It appears there was a misunderstanding. You weren't attempting to steal anything. We apologize for the inconvenience." The officers exchanged glances, but before they could say anything further, the younger officer spoke up. "We are very sorry, sir. You are free to go." Ethan stood up, his movements deliberate. He looked directly into both of their eyes, his gaze unwavering. "This isn't over," he said simply. "Not for me, and not for the countless others who face this kind of treatment every day. People I have a responsibility to ensure fairness for." As the older officer reached to remove Ethan's handcuffs, in the ensuing shuffle, Ethan's wallet slipped out of his back pocket. It flipped open, revealing his driver's license and, the thing that made everyone freeze, his high-ranking police badge from the Maplewood Police Department. Along with his employee ID card displaying his photo and clear title, Ethan Bell. A dead silence fell over the parking lot. The store manager's jaw dropped, his face paling. The 2 officers, especially the older, previously assertive one, seemed to stiffen. The younger officer stammered, "Sir, Mr. You're..." Ethan maintained his composed expression, though a storm was brewing inside him. "I am Ethan Bell," he stated, his voice calm but carrying an undeniable authority. "And you just handcuffed a high-ranking police officer of this very department." The older officer's face shifted from sternness to sheer horror. He fumbled with the cuffs, his hands trembling as he quickly released Ethan. "Sir, Chief Bell. We had no idea." The store manager interjected, his voice laced with fear. I just thought," because he didn't scan the olive oil. Ethan looked directly at the manager, not with anger, but with profound disappointment. "You jumped to conclusions without verifying anything. You accused me of theft in front of numerous people, and you called the police to apprehend me. Despite my attempts to explain," he turned to the 2 officers, "and you, instead of investigating properly, acted solely on the word of a store employee without question." Just then, Officer Davis's radio crackled to life. The dispatcher's voice urgent, "All units. We have an emergency call at..." But Officer Miller, the younger one, his face ashen and eyes wide with disbelief, acted first, his hand trembling. He reached into his vest pocket, pulled out a spare set of handcuffs, and without a word, locked them around Officer Davis's wrists. "Miller, what the hell are you doing?" Davis roared, struggling against the cuffs to no avail. Miller, his voice shaking but firm, looked directly at Davis. I heard everything in the car. You don't deserve to wear this badge anymore." He turned to Ethan, stammering, "Chief Bell, I'm so sorry. I should have." Ethan raised a hand to stop Miller. He looked at the handcuffs now binding Davis's wrists, then at Miller, a complex emotion in his eyes. "You did the right thing," Ethan said, his voice resolute. His behavior was unacceptable. Right there, in the parking lot, before the gaping store manager and a few lingering, curious shoppers, Officer Miller unpinned the police badge from Davis's uniform shirt. His hand trembled, but his action was decisive. The badge fell to the asphalt with a small, sharp clink in the sudden silence. "You are relieved of duty. Effective immediately," Miller said to Davis, his voice choked with emotion. "I will be reporting this entire incident." Davis's eyes bulged, unable to comprehend what was happening. He looked from the cuffs on his wrists to the badge lying on the ground. Then back at Ethan with a look of pure hatred. Ethan said nothing more. He knew that justice had begun to be served. Right then and there. This incident would be a costly lesson for those who dared to abuse their power and harbor such prejudice. Immediately, the event sent shockwaves through the community. The video footage of Ethan being handcuffed, coupled with the revelation of his true identity, spread like wildfire across social media. Public outrage soared as they realized a high-ranking officer, recently appointed to bring positive change, had been treated with such blatant injustice. The story of Ethan Bell and the $11 bottle of olive oil has exposed the prejudices and injustices that still exist. Don't let this story end here. Share it. Reflect on how you can make a difference in your community. Together, we can build a world where justice is the norm, not the exception. If you want to follow more inspiring stories, subscribe to our channel. Change starts with you.